Today's episode of Slot Shot Podcast is brought to you by Vicks DayQuil. It is the holiday season, but it's also cold and flu season. Let's not shut down the world the next time you have the sniffles with Vicks DayQuil, your non-drowsy cold remedy. Whether you're cramming for the last few days of work before end-of-year shutdowns, or just looking for a little kick in the rear before a night out, don't waste a sick day or a night with DayQuil. Available at your local pharmacy.
Welcome back to Slot Shot Podcast, a hockey podcast. We're back in studio. We've got one man that's a little under the weather, and we'll check in on him throughout the podcast. In Arm Dog, Ross and I are ready to shoot from the hip, but the boys are fired up. We're mere days from Christmas, but the NHL doesn't take too much of a break, and the boys won't as well. So we will have this week's podcast, next week's pod on the 27th, and continue rolling on to the new year from there. Boys, as we always do, checking in. Ross, I think I'm going to let Arm wait. How are you feeling?
Just peachy, thank you. Ready to rock and roll.
Army, get down to it. Are you okay?
No, I'm sick. I don't know what is so confusing about this.
There's nothing confusing. We care about
So when you say, am I okay? No, because it's unfortunate, and it's been 2 days of sickness, but I will survive.
Is it sickness?
I'm able to record a podcast, so it's good enough.
Yeah, fair. Well, we appreciate you toughing it out for the boys.
He's listed as questionable in the podcast injury report, but I'm really loving the tension today pre-pod. You know, Army's he's a little surly. He's usually Mr. Good Vibe Tribe, so it's nice to have a little bit of a fired up Army. So I'm excited for today's chemistry.
Keeping us on our toes. I like it. Jumping into tonight's schedule, we got a little World Juniors preview as we're about 5 days away from the puck drop in Gothenburg, Sweden, I believe, is where this one's taking place. We've got a little firing for your Ottawa Sens. Sens goal.
Another one bites the dust.
And then Devin Tays, after a tough 3-2 loss to the Blackhawks last night in Chicago, kind of called out the whole roster, the whole locker room. So we've got to dig deep into a little bit of Tays' comments last night in the media. The always reliable loose change returns. Alex is asked to pass along his Termite pick, so Ross will step up for the boys and deliver another Termite nominee. And finally, Saturday picks, another close one as Ross and Alex are tied for first with me in third. Hopeful that we can hit a nice little parlay heading into Christmas. Boys, let's get into it. World Junior preview. I think the three of us, being from the United States, have to feel a little bit confident in this year's roster. They're opening up as, I think, the Vegas favorites for the tournament. And if you look at the U.S. roster, it shows. I mean, you've got Will Smith leading the defenseman. Or not defenseman. He's going to be Will Smith, forward. First overall, fourth pick to San Jose last year's draft. Oliver Moore, Frank Nazar. Oliver Moore, 19th overall last year's draft. Jimmy, how do you say that? Snuggerud?
There you go.
Snuggerud. 23rd in 22's draft. A lot of first-round picks is my point about this team. And I could continue going on the list, but I won't. The U.S. is showing their power, and they're showing the young guns, and it's quite an exciting roster to look at. You look at the Canadians, a little bit more of a it's going to be a grittier style of play for this Canadian team. I think it's going to be one where we'll get into the roster. We'll get into a Bruin that was actually sent down to the World Juniors in a surprising move that we'll dissect a little bit. But the Canadians, they're going to have to rely on a harder fought 60-minute game, a little bit more of doing the dirty things rather than relying on that skill. Where you look at last year's roster with Fantilli and Bedard, it goes to Connor Geekie of Arizona, Easton Cohen of Toronto, and Matthew Savoy of Buffalo are the big guns on that first line. Some questions from there out forward. Matthew Patra is the Boston Bruin we referred to. It's an interesting one, a guy who's played in 25-plus games at this point. He will step into the Canadian roster as Boston elected to send him to the World Juniors. Instant reaction, boys.
I'll start. He's a Boston Bruin. Do you guys have any personal experience knowing about your teams and following prospects that make the team as 18-year-olds and then go down, as under 20s and play in the World Juniors and get development? Who with?
Kirby Doc breaking his wrist in the World Juniors.
Okay, there's one example. Army?
No, not really with World Juniors. I've seen them go down to minor leagues getting a stint at the beginning of the year.
All right, so Patra came out of the gates looking really great. I kind of gave his player comp sort of a grittier, less productive Matthew Barzal type. He'd been playing center for the Bruins and sticking his nose in the dirty areas, making some skill plays. Really, all 200 feet, looked really good early. He's hit a little bit of rookie doldrums, right, which is somewhat to be expected with the NHL schedule. He had gotten benched a little bit, not like show you up bench, but like every other shift, second half of a game with a lead, and they decided to send him down to be the one NHL player under 20 to play for Canada in this tournament. So I'm a little torn on it. Part of me is thinking he's a contributor on this Bruins team, and it's the National Hockey League. It's not it's not university. It's not a development league. It's the NHL. So what are we doing here? But I've been kind of talked off the cliff a little bit from my buddies at home. This could be a good way for him to kind of build some confidence, be the man down there. You spend 20 or so games in the NHL, and you go down, you talk to all these guys that are yet to get there. Everybody's going to be at his locker stall asking and learning about everything. So you can just kind of imagine how that would feel as a 18, 19-year-old that's broken into the NHL and now's a chance to go play with your people that you've grown up playing with in the best junior tournament in the world, but he should be a standout player. So I don't know. We're going to get to the Bruins in a bit and some of their issues, and he's not like the solution to those things. So my initial reaction was like, what are we doing? He's needed with the big club, but I'm starting to warm to the idea of letting him go, hopefully have a great tournament and come back with a boatload of confidence and ready to rock and roll. But I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on him, and anything less than a standout performance would be a disappointment, and I would definitely second guess it.
Definitely a little bit of an eye-opener knowing that the center depth for the Bruins is not necessarily – it's not bad by any means, but it's a little shaky at some points. And if you look at the ice time, I know we're not going to spend too much time on it. His ice time has decreased since the start of the season, so it gives him obviously a way to be the number one guy on this Canadian team, playing big minutes, playing important roles. So I like the thought of that, but definitely a little strange when you've got a guy who's been up for 25 games.
The Patra thing, right? It's sort of near and dear, and it is a bit of a storyline on this. But just like for our listeners, if you're not super familiar with the World Junior Championships, it's the under 20 World Championships. It's the number one showcase of the top end talent that's yet to enter the NHL. A lot of these guys have been drafted, a few have not yet. And it's like the number one. It's kind of like college bowl game season. For college football, but for hockey, where you get a chance to see all the Swedes, Finns, Russians, well, not Russians, I guess, this year, but you get to see all of the big hockey powerhouse nations, top junior talent, and playing in the most high-stakes tournament. It's a best-on-best prospects tournament that has a huge impact on draft status and is some of the best insight into the guys that your team has picked and where they're trending and how they're doing, because a number of these guys are being in the NHL next year. I mean, especially the teams that we focus on, right? U.S., Canada, Army. I don't know if you know some of the Swedes, but it's going to be a very North America tilted analysis, but it's a great tournament because it's in Sweden, right? You're going to have some early games on the schedule. Keep your eyes peeled for the TV schedule. We're not going to get into that, but it's a good way to sneak in some hockey over the break if you're up early and maybe work's not buzzing, or your family, other people are kind of kicking off the cobwebs. You can watch some really, really high end hockey and incredible skill on the Olympic sized ice, which is in lieu of a best on best Olympics, which I'm not going to rant about today. It's some pretty great hockey, and it's really exciting to watch. And for Canada, it's like the Super Bowl rolled into one. And for every other country that's a big hockey powerhouse, it's like the opportunity to unseat Canada pretty much, right? I mean, anything I said you disagree with?
No, I think that's fair. I would go the step further and say at this point in time with where the NHL is with international play, this is the most exciting international tournament the sport has to offer, in my opinion.
Yeah, every year, yeah, for sure.
Army, I know you're ready to chomp at the bit for this one. What do you got on the World Juniors? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I mean, so we talked about Patra a lot. He's definitely a story because he's playing the NHL, but just for context on how good this tournament is, I think if he didn't have an NHL stint, he'd be like a middle six forward for Team Canada. He's not a first liner. He's not the leader of this team. He might be because he's playing in the NHL, but like
he was a second-round pick, right?
I know.
Yeah.
This is all first-round picks that play in this tournament.
Exactly.
I mean, second-rounders struggle to make the team unless they've had it's hard.
It's a tough team to make. Yep, for sure.
We're gonna get to see Macklin Celebrini.
Yep.
He's the main guy in this tournament. He is gonna be the first pick, most likely.
Look for the guy with the cage on Canada.
Boston University.
That'll be Celebrini.
He'll be in the bubble. He wears a bubble.
Yeah.
No, he's going cage. You got to look up his hang.
He's going cage.
He's
Oh,
going
I saw that.
cage.
All right,
It's
all right.
wild.
Well, we're gonna notice him. He's gonna be always the dude with the cage in this tournament sick because they're a little bit younger.
That means
That's always how
you're
it
not
works.
yet
It means
18.
he's 17
Yeah.
years old.
So that'll be fun. But then also we've talked about like how so many guys from the draft went to like BU or BC this year. Like all these Americans going to college now. College hockey's like at an all-time high, which is awesome. But one of my biggest issues with college hockey is the camera work is just brutal. Like it's really hard to tell what's going on. Well, you can tell what's going on. You just don't get the cool shots most often because it's horrible camera. I don't know what they're doing with that.
It's just not as many cameras. It's just not as much production.
But it also seems like it's not even HD. Anyways, they're all going to be playing in this tournament that does have good cameras and has good coverage. This U.S. team is loaded. I think like there's already like 3 top 5 picks on the team.
Cutter Garthier, Lane Hudson, Will Smith. The
You have
list
that whole BU line.
Ryan
wild.
Leonard, BC line. It's all
Yeah,
BC.
line,
It's
yeah.
gonna be insane.
BU's big guys are Lane Hudson, who's going to play D for the U.S., who looks like I don't want to go all the way to Quinn Hughes type, but he's a pretty dynamic offensive defenseman. And then Macklin Celebrini playing for Canada. That's a rare pull, a future number 1 pick that's Canadian born that's playing at BU right now. Those are the big BU guys. The BC is, God, the entire U.S. roster is BC. What do they have?
Yeah.
They have 6 guys and a goalie? 6 skaters and a goalie? On the U.S. roster that play for BC right now.
I think so, yeah.
It's insane.
It's crazy.
It's insane.
One thing that I did find pretty disappointing, I mean, it was expected, but then I saw a projection of what it could have been. The Russian team's not here. And the Russian team would have been very exciting, particularly because of Matvei Michkov.
I heard
Getting to see him.
He's actually had some pneumonia, and he hasn't
Yeah,
played
he's
in a
out.
few
He's
weeks.
out right now.
So he wouldn't be available, but
He's a point per game player though, up in the K.
yeah, no.
But there's a lot of players.
For sure.
There's a tons, and there's
Major hockey
Yeah.
nation. Yep.
No, it's gonna be fun. I mean, you're looking at Sweden's lineup. I know Axel Sandin Palika is a former first-round pick. I'm trying to blank on where he is at right now, but there's
Detroit.
definitely. Is he Detroit?
yes.
Oh, no.
Where else?
Nate Danielson, also of Detroit, is on that Canadian roster. So definitely some prospects to watch. A little bit more fun atmosphere, and it's going to be in Gothenburg, Sweden, kicking off on the 26th Tuesday, 6 a.m. start. Earliest you'll see in terms of games for the semifinal round will be 5 a.m. going on till 1:30 Eastern.
Brutal.
But yeah, Canada kicks off versus Finland 8:30 Tuesday. United States, Norway 11 o'clock Eastern time puck drop in Gothenburg. Should be an exciting tournament. Should be a fun watch. I know I'm looking forward to it. I know the boys are looking forward to it. It makes the winter season go a little bit faster. And I know it's bowl season, but this is something with NHL. The Winter Classic will be going full schedule throughout the holidays. Tune into NHL Network and watch some primetime World Juniors hockey.
And just one last plug on it. We're not going to go crazy because nobody's heard of most of these guys, but Cutter Gauthier, Ryan Leonard, and Gabe Perreault all play on the same line at BC, and they're going to keep that together. There'll be a lot of coverage. If you listen to the commentators, you'll be able to follow that. Those guys are like leading the number 1 team in the country in college right now, and they're all freshmen, and they all play together, and they're all going to be on USA playing on the same line. So you're going to see some chemistry, and that's an exciting thing to look out for, even though it's BC.
Correct. Any final thoughts, Arm Dog? Or are we ready to move on?
No.
Perfect. World
I'm
Juniors.
shocked we didn't get more Red Wings prospect talk, but that's all right.
Well, you're going to notice them. I don't need to say anything.
World Juniors kicking off
Salty.
Tuesday. Moving on. It's been a theme. It's been we're up to four coaching changes on the fresh 35 game mark.
Wow.
NHL season at this point as Ottawa joins the list. Rookie head coach DJ Smith, after losing the fan base and starting to lose the locker room, he is done in Ottawa, replaced by Jacques Martin.
Jacques Martin. I knew that was going to be a picture joke.
Martin, formerly of Chicago, formerly of last head coaching job, I think was in 2011, I want to say. But it's been a while since he's stepped in. This is a hire that Ottawa picked up, I think, about 2 weeks ago to kind of oversee the coaching staff and a little bit of the hockey play itself. And now we see Jacques step into the head coaching role as the interim, potentially there for the rest of the season, to be determined with Anlauer and Staios leading the charge for Ottawa. It should be interesting to see what happens there. And then Daniel Alfredson, the loved captain, formerly of the Senators, hops on the bench after a conversation last week where I was told I'm crazy that he wants to coach. He's on the bench, so I'm taking my victory lap on that one.
Okay, let me jump in on this, okay? Because you're breezing by these names like all of our listeners know these guys. Michael Anlauer, new owner of Ottawa Senators, basically rescued the franchise from an old, the guy died, so you don't want to beat him up too bad. But they've been historically one of the cheapest teams in the league. Anlauer comes in, and they're starting to, trying to turn it into a first-class organization. Staios, he mentioned, Steve Staios, former NHL, longtime journeyman defenseman. He's brought in as the new president of hockey ops and now interim GM because they fired the GM and the head coach. Now, Jacques Martin was the head coach of Ottawa last time they played in a Stanley Cup final back in 2007. And he was a longtime coach for the Senators. He's one of these old-school X's and O's. Just an old hockey mind from the 90s and kind of pre-lockout era. He's very old. He's like 72 or something. And they brought him in as, some kind of a counsel. He had been around the team-ish just because he's sort of a Senator for life. And, when they fired DJ Smith, they, inserted him behind the bench with Alfredson coming down from the front office to be an assistant coach. Now, I said Alfredson's more on that front office track than he is to be a head coach. And maybe that was wrong, but this drives me nuts. I'm very concerned for my Sens. I think I think firing DJ Smith was the right move. I don't think he was losing the locker room. Army was all over this last week. They play completely out of control emotionally. So I get the sense of bringing in Martin to be sort of the adult in the room and to bring some maturity to the group, but especially when Berube got fired last week, I just think there are a number of other guys that could have come in that are a little bit closer to being real head coaches in today's NHL than Jacques Martin, who hasn't, like you said, coached since, 2011? So it's just, it's frustrating a little bit. I think it's...
To your point on that.
Well, I think it's the right move to move off from DJ Smith, but I don't like what they're doing with Alfredson and with and with Martin. Martin hasn't been around. Martin has a coach since 2011, and Alfredson has zero experience coaching in the NHL.
I was listening to Drager and Ray Ferraro's podcast, and it sounds like Anlauer and Staios are still looking to replace and hire a GM. He doesn't want, they want him to be the president of hockey ops. And with that being said, I think they want to allow that GM to step into the role and be part of that hiring process. And that's where I think you see Martin get the interim role for potentially the rest of the season. Yes, we've talked about, it's now Woodcroft, Evanson, DJ Smith, and now Berube on the coaching block. And there's still more that haven't been hired after last season. So the options are plenty. And I think their thought is that a coach of a big name will still be there in the offseason. So I think they're waiting to hopefully shore up that front office, make that change, make that decision as a group and as a whole, and go from there is what I would tell you is the direction of that.
And the reason I'm torn up about it, Jack, is this just feels like another kind of another ingredient to another bridge season for the Senators.
Correct.
When the roster's good enough to be in the playoffs.
Correct. Right? No, you're not wrong at all in that sense. And Army, I'll let you go here in a second. But you look at it, the results are, they've got 22 points. They're off a 5-game losing streak, 4 with DJ Smith before Martin's first game last night after blowing a 3-1 lead with 10 minutes left in the third period to Arizona.
To the pesky Yotes.
So the struggling play has been all over, and it's been a tough time. And as you mentioned, this core, this group that people have had expectations seemingly for the last 2 years now is flopping again. And I think we'll pose the question, and I want to let Arm go on terms of the firing before we pose this question of are the Sens dead?
Yeah, so on the firing, I think it needed to happen. I think we've been bashing this team for a while now in terms of how they play. I don't know how you don't get a new coach in probably sooner, but I guess whatever. They do it now, so good on that. What I don't like seeing is last night they go up, quick early lead, and 4 minutes in. Minute and a half later, Brady Tkachuk takes a hit from Matt Dumba, fights him right away. I hate it. I mean, Brady Tkachuk just feels like the need to fight, and they showed the video of him. He beats the crap out of Matt Dunn, but like not like he was hurt or anything, but he clearly wins the fight. They show Brady, big Tkachuk, Keith's out there with his daughter, Brady's sister, and they're all like, high five, yeah. I'm like, this is not what this team needs. You know, Brady going and bashing somebody again, taking himself off the ice, one of the best players on the team. I don't support it. They're horrible. They take the most penalties in the league. They have one of the worst penalty kills. Undisciplined. I don't know. And then they go on to lose. They blow a 3-0 lead in this game. The Coyotes. I'm just completely off on the mentality. Brady Tkachuk, like I feel like every game I watch, I'm starting to like it less. I feel like that play only really works when you're winning. And when it's kind of a detriment to the team and he's taking himself off the ice all the time, it kind of just looks fake to me. And the tough guy act is gone for me now.
So I hear you on that. So and this is bleeding into loose change a little bit, but going back to that Ottawa St. Louis game, the infamous Cryrou game. In that game, Ottawa was asleep, and Brady Tkachuk dragged them into the fight. And he threw down, and it was a complete wake up call for the squad. And I think right now what you're seeing, you say it's fake, and I hear you on that, but I think it's totally sincere from him. It's just he doesn't really know what to do. He knows what to do as much as any 23-year-old captain has ever known to do, but he's trying too hard, and I think his emotional recklessness kind of goes all the way down the lineup, and that's kind of the story for Ottawa right now. They're emotionally out of control. And Brady's part of the problem in that. But
well, he's the leader of the team, and he knows how to play a physical game without fighting and taking penalties. There's a completely different way to funnel that energy. I would like a coach to come in and say, stop dropping the gloves every time you want to.
What do you think of the picture on Saturday night of him and Stone at the UFC fight? Next night they'd lose 6-3 to Vegas in Vegas.
I mean, I'm not. These guys can have lives outside of the game too. It does hurt a little bit more when you're playing like shit. But like, I don't know. If I'm on a road trip in Vegas, I don't think that's killing me.
They're former teammates.
I'm not upset by that.
I think that's bullshit. But like, Brady was terrible in that St. Louis game early, and then he had the fight, and then the whole team kind of woke up and rallied, and then he tries to do it again and again and again and again, and it's just. They need some other guys to step up. I think Claude Giroux needs to play a much bigger role in that leadership group. I'm kind of at a loss here, really, for how just out of control they've been. They've been a different team every period that I've watched, and when they look good, they look great. But I haven't seen them string together 60 minutes being the same identity.
Right. No, I mean, even looking at last night, Korpisalo, 34 saves on 38 shots. They take a lead. 3 goals on 6 shots to chase Ingram out of the Coyotes' net before Vejmelka,
yeah, there you
go, comes in and seals the door for Arizona. And when you only have 22 shots and you allow 38, I mean, it's tough to win those hockey games. But it's been a disaster from the Sens. And I posed the question. I think you've hinted at it. We've seen St. Louis went off on a run after a coaching change. Minnesota did as well. Are we going to see a coaching bump from the Sens, and B, can we expect them to try and make a chase back into this wild card hunt? They still have, I think, the least amount of games played in the league, so that's
the only thing they have going for them right now.
And that was maybe the worst coaching bump I've ever seen.
Yeah,
like pretty much every team, the coaching bump happens and they win that first game.
It looked good for a period.
That's so Sens.
Sens.
It's
the same problems they've had all year.
Yep. No, I hear you.
And not just all year, last few.
Yeah, I'm not sold on this team at all, to be honest. I'm ready to call them dead. I think they should maybe buy shirts. It seems like they play like it's Ottawa versus everybody. When teams get like that, they're like, everyone's coming after us. So I think they should get shirts that say Ottawa versus everybody, and then like in parentheses below, but it's actually us just killing ourselves repeatedly.
As they Ottawa versus everybody, including Ottawa.
Yeah, but it's really mainly us.
No,
let's go fight somebody about it.
It's a problem. No, there's no question about it. And with this core, as Ross talked about, they're just not living up to expectations, and it's frustrating. And I can't imagine how Sens fans are feeling about it. But unfortunately, it looks like another lost season for for the Senators up in Ottawa.
Which, by the way, they just got the Chikrin trade last year was a big move to make, and it was a multiple-year investment,
franchise-altering move.
And that was saying look, we're ready to go. And I know Shabbat has only played 9 games this year. That's a huge loss. He's probably the best defenseman on that team. Sanderson has looked great.
Track record-wise, he's the best.
And maybe they're missing some of that leadership, but come on, there's way too much talent. We talk about it every week. There's too much talent. They find different ways to blow games.
And so I am now take cornered on Ottawa, and
I think you should just give it up. I mean,
but you know what? I'm in the bunker. I'm in the take bunker. I'm not abandoning ship yet. I hate the coach change. We've talked about all of this, but I'm not yet abandoning faith until there's mathematical.
Well, I mean, it also
conclusion.
Can't get worse. You've already this is the low point to jump out on. I would
the least amount of games. I mean,
yeah, they could make a playoff run, and we could at least say
when you're in the last place, there's only, as you said, there's only up. Always up.
Now, Jack, we missed something in our pre-pod prep, which is the Cryrou situation, which I think we should cover. It goes off schedule a little bit, but it does segue nicely into Devon Taves' comments. So let's inject the Cryrou topic here,
sure.
and then we'll get to Devon Taves after.
After a loss over the weekend, I believe, Cryrou had comments after the Berube firing that he basically just said, I have no comment. He's not my coach anymore. St. Louis fans the next night took that as, I hated Berube. He didn't do anything for me. It wasn't received well. Cryrou receives boos that night, and in an emotional post-game interview, gets emotional. Says he loves playing in St. Louis, loves being there, loves being around the boys, and is just trying to kind of solidify himself as a talented forward in the National Hockey League as he was picked to be coming up as a prospect, and unfortunately it's been a little bit of hit or miss with Cryrou, and he's feeling the pressure of a team that is of St. Louis that's built to potentially make a run at the wild card. After looking at it coming into the year, I wasn't that high on St. Louis, but they've made a run at it, and they're still very competitive in the Central and in the wild card hunt in the West. Cryrou the next night would respond and would score the game tying goal and also set up the game winning goal. And in the post game interview, let a few F-bombs fly and was very excited and got a good standing ovation from the St. Louis faithful as it was an interesting week for Jordan Cryrou, and I'm sure Rusty has a little bit more that I've missed, but.
I want to take another stab at setting the context for our listeners, okay? Because Cryrou came up as a young prospect. You mentioned high draft pick, young prospect. He was like a young guy in and out of the lineup on that Cup team, right? Him and Robert Thomas were like the two young guys that he was on the roster. He didn't play a ton of games, but he was part of that run. And Berube was obviously the coach, so he won a Cup together with Berube. It was very public knowledge that he had been benched. He had been seeing less ice time. He also signed a big ticket. He's just now on his big contract. And that's a big part of this puzzle because they signed him to be a point-per-game player, kind of their Kyle Connor, right? We've talked about that type of player. And so far, since the contract's come through, he has not been great. And so the setup of the question was, it's been very public. You and Berube not really seeing eye to eye. Do you have anything to say about him? And he says, right, I've got no comment. He's not my coach anymore. And the fan base absolutely teed up. The booing they did at Enterprise Center every time Cryrou touched the puck, I was hysterical. I was hysterical watching the game. I've never seen anything like it for a home team guy. And it was like not just audible. It was like pronounced. They were waiting for the puck to come to him to boo their hearts out, and it was really loud. And then in the post game, after being booed and playing pretty much like dog shit. He kind of broke down and he cried in the interview and, he was just saying, it's been really tough, and he kind of backtracked some of his comments. And then he comes out the next night and plays so much better, obviously contributes to a huge win. But, I want to talk, I want to just chronologically, right?
And we actually have Berube went on a podcast and talked about it today. So
interesting.
Finish your point, and I have his line drawn up.
So Cryrou's crying about being booed after the game. They won that fucking game.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my big problems with it. The team won the game, and I that to me was a really bad look. But it comes down, in my opinion, to basically playing a little bit of blame game. And I want to ask you, Jack, Who do you blame for that Q&A Cryrou had after the win when he broke down and cried?
I think it's just,
because there is a right answer here.
It didn't look great for Cryrou. There's no question about it. And I don't hate that he's showing emotion, but I felt like it was taking a little bit of a hard fought win and what the momentum has been in that locker room and kind of putting it on himself. So I could say, it's a little bit of that, but also, he was asked the question.
Well, you could say anything, but whose fault was it?
I guess, and I'll go to Berube's comments. Cryrou, and I would say he got caught off guard, but I would say Cryrou.
Wrong. It's Blues PR.
That's okay. Yeah, that's fair.
When they make the coaching change, they need to brief every guy on the team that these questions are going to be coming, and they're going to be different questions for different players. And Blues PR should have prepared him to answer questions about the coaching change so that it could just be we're moving forward, yada yada. It'd be really easy to say one nice thing and just say, it didn't go great, but we shared a lot, taught me a lot about the game, and now we're moving forward. Mm-hmm. That would have been, and it never would have been a thing. So it's Blues PR's fault. That's a big thing to me.
That's fair.
Other takeaways on it. The kid cares.
Yep.
And I think that came through the next day when he played well and got cheered, et cetera. But
yep.
He cares, which I think a lot of guys could have just brushed that off and been like, one thing to say after being booed would have been like, hey, you pay for a ticket, you can do what you want. And so it's not so bad, but definitely not a good look, especially after a win. That really sat poorly with me. But you know what? Actions speak louder than words. And coming out the next night and playing well,
yep.
He's still got a hill to climb to prove his contract worthy. But he's got all the talent. So curious to hear what Armdog has to say about the Cryrou situation.
Yeah, so the contract's big, $8 million. I don't think he's been horrible. He's a point-a-game player over the last 2 years, pretty much. So I don't know what they were expecting, but I think point a game from Cryrou is pretty good. And before the coaching change, he was not playing power play 1, and the power play was stuttering. Like, it was pretty bad. And I was looking at that. I'm like, why are you not having Jordan Cryrou out there? There's not really somebody else I'd rather have on the power play other than him. Seems a bit odd. Immediately gets bumped up to power play 1 after the coaching change, which I think is pretty obvious was going to happen. So I wonder if something else was going on there that led to those comments. And also, when your team's struggling a little bit, power play's not working, and you feel like you should be out there, I understand how heat of the moment you might say something that, like those quotes where you're like, well, I don't really care at this point. But yeah, tough to get booed. It was interesting. I haven't seen a player cry like that in a regular season game about getting booed.
Never, ever. And I don't think hockey needs more crying. I want to be on the record for that.
Yeah, but I do like the he cares point. I think like that's a good aspect of it. And also good on the St. Louis fans for at least knowing how to boo.
Oh yeah, they did a good job executing.
But it should
play.
it's good on the fan base. You heard those quotes at least. So many fan bases don't even know that those quotes happened.
Yep.
So I think it shows, and I think everyone's kind of aware St. Louis is a pretty committed fan base, a good hockey base. But yeah, it was an interesting situation. I wonder, is it just a one-game thing? They're all happy now?
Yeah, so that's pretty much where it's at. And amidst all the drama and the tears, Rusty nailed the Saturday pick, unlike Jack.
Relax. We'll get there. Berube hopped on the Ray and Dregs podcast that was posted today, and his comment was, he reached out for sure. Listen, I've got no issue with him. He got caught off guard and didn't know what to say. He's young. A lot of these young guys get asked questions at the time, and they're not thinking like they should, and it's tough for him. I was happy for Jordan. He came back and had a good game against Dallas. Very good game, so he performed well. He'll be fine. Good comments from Craig Berube. Surprising that he's already taken an interview, and so we'll definitely tune into that one and catch that one. Should be an interesting one. But no, it was definitely an interesting week for Jordan Cryrou, and it was a good way to be able to respond and help him defeat the number 1 seed in the Central and the Dallas Stars.
And nothing surprising there from Berube. Just taking the high road, class act. And he's been around the game forever, right? He's not a bad guy. So just because he and Cryrou didn't get along doesn't mean that he doesn't care care about him. And also, you got to also keep in mind, Brube's in the coaching market, right? And so he doesn't want the label of I can't coach young guys and everybody hates me, which definitely isn't his rep.
Protection.
But, so, I don't think you were I wasn't expecting much juice from that interview, but again, just kind of classic Brube.
That's also kind of what I expected. I think that's kind of what happened, though. I'm not even sure that they don't get along. I think what he said is probably what actually happened.
Well, they had a real kind of falling out issue. It was kind of like a Bruce Cassidy, Jake DeBrusque thing.
There was a thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on.
The difference is Cryrou can play, and DeBrusque I'm going to get to later. Motherfucker.
Moving on. The Colorado Avalanche, as I hinted out, lost to the Blackhawks last night in Chicago by a score of 3-2. The Blackhawks ended up taking this one after a power play goal in the third period.
That would have been a juicy Hawks money line pick.
You're telling me. Devin Tays, the second leader of the blue line, paired with obviously he's the Robin to the Batman of Cale Makar, Stanley Cup winner with Colorado. But in the media after the game, was quoted saying, "It's self-awareness. We need guys that know how to play in our system, how to play our game, and know what it takes. We've got some guys in here that think they're playing well, and I think they're kidding themselves at this point. It's frustrating to play out there, and when you've got guys that think they're playing well and they're doing things that you have no idea what play they're going to make or where they're going to be on the ice. It's tough to play in this league when you don't know where your teammates are going to be. So that's where a lot of the frustration stems from." Colorado's let a 2-1 lead slip in this one. Blackhawks, definitely an inspiring performance from them. My father was in the building and was loving every minute of it before he took his trip. But no, it was definitely a frustrating loss for the Avs, who moved to 4-5-1 on the month. They are still tied for first, at least going into before tonight's games, with the Dallas Stars in the Central. But it has been some shaky performances from this Avs team. There's no question about that. Makar ended up taking a big hit, and in the third period late, and it ended up with Ryan Johansson actually taking a roughing penalty in the last 50 seconds that put Colorado on the penalty kill while they're trying to score and tie this one up. A little bit of self-destruction from the Colorado Avalanche, boys. What do we got?
I mean, we've been talking about this team not playing well for a while. They just have so much skill that it doesn't seem to matter a lot of games. They can just score at a higher rate than most teams. I think it's a pretty bad look for Devin Tays. He clearly can't be a leader in that locker room if he's going to go talk like that publicly. I mean, otherwise, why would he say – because his quote was these guys think that they're playing well. It's well, did you talk to them? Did you say, oh, this is our system, you're not there? He's talking specifically you look up, you want to see a guy there. So you know who it is, and you know what they need to be doing, and you can ask a pretty direct question where were you on this play? And it doesn't sound like he was able to communicate that with the team, which I think is a pretty bad look. And then to air it out publicly is also a pretty bad look, It's weird. I don't know who he would be talking about. I assume it's not any of the guys who have been on the team, None of these big guns that were there for the winning. So then you're looking at the new additions. Is it a defenseman? Is it a forward? Is it, who is it? You'd expect Ryan Johansson. I feel like he might be the guy, but also Ryan Johansson doesn't really have that reputation in my mind. I'm not sure he'd be that guy. It's confusing. I hate the quote. I really don't like it. To me, it's soft. It's go talk to them.
Two things about the quote. 4 coaching changes already this year. So when you're a team that's not playing your best hockey, you have certain kind of clubs in the bag to try to kick the team in the ass and wake them up. Right? One of those things is the closed-door players-only meetings, right? Mm-hmm. One of those things is firing assistant coaches, firing head coaches. Another thing that head coaches can do is doing public call-outs in the media. That's another tool in the toolbox. But players going public about players,
it's a little bit of...
That's some high-stakes stuff. And Devon Taves actually has a little bit of a kind of muddy history there from coming up from Quinnipiac and his rise to the NHL and being in the Islanders. I think he's a little bit of a different cat. And, it's interesting you say that, Arm, because I heard the quote and I was thinking to myself, our preview of Colorado was Ryan Johansson is the X factor for this team. Nathan McKinnon runs a tight ship, and Johansson's career to date has been underperforming because he doesn't seem to be the most committed guy. And so I'm immediately connecting dots and trying to put it on Johansson, who's not been good. and 12 points in 32 games.
10 goals.
That's just not good. And so I start thinking about who's not playing the right way, and I get his comments because beer league, right? You don't practice, but it's frustrating when guys are just all over the place and like not where they should be and not like ready for certain plays. And at the NHL level, I think Taves he's making a good point, but doing it publicly, I think you're onto something there. And I don't think it's something that Colorado can address and can't get past, especially with the experience in the core group. But like Nichushkin's playing great. Rantanen and McKinnon, right? Like there's no issues there. But you start to go down this lineup and it's real top heavy from a production standpoint. I know that the Miles, Rusty Colton, and Logan O'Connor lines we love. That's a first team all Termite line. But as an interesting little interesting bit there, Army, about can Devon Taves really be a leader? And I think that's a valid criticism. I don't like the move. Now that we've kind of processed it and hearing your thoughts.
Bednar comments after the game says the freelancing Taves talked about is something that the team has talked about a lot of late. Says the Avs have to earn their goals and they're giving them away to opposition. Talked about a lack of discipline and details. I actually kind of like it. I think it's if anyone's going to call him out, anyone's willing to speak. I think Taves went on record after a tough loss in Seattle in November and kind of had some comments about what the play has been of late. Yes, last week we had Rantanen's comments of Lehkonen and his father. Not that I think that's a huge distraction in this locker room.
Good point.
There's stuff going around in Colorado, and I think it's Taves trying to say, boys, we are a team that should be competing. We are a team that is a contender. We are a team that is 4-5-1 in the month of December. We need to wake up. We need to turn on the jets and start cruising, and that's not what has happened. So I think you say it's a lack of leadership. I say it is showing a little bit. Yes, you don't want to get called out by your teammates in the media, but then again, maybe this will light a little bit of a fire in the Avs locker room that gets these boys going.
Jack, good reminder about the Rantanen comments and the right. So Lehkonen, who we love on the ice, right? His dad's like a talking head in Finland hockey, right?
Yep.
Arm?
We talked about it last week.
And so, right, he was being critical of Rantanen and bringing up Rantanen's off-season training and like basically talking shit in the media. And I think that's important context to this Taves quote. It makes me like the quote less, honestly. It makes it there seem to be some serious fractures there. And I had totally forgotten about the Rantanen Lehkonen item. That's all happening within a span of 10 days? Right after the dad's trip. I mean, this
also
that's a weird moment in there for a Stanley Cup favorite.
And in the same week they traded forward Thomas Tatar to Seattle for a 5th round 24 pick. So they're making moves, and they're not afraid to change things up. I think it's been interesting. There's no question about that. And I think the Avs have what it takes to turn it on. There's no question about that. A little bit of health has been an issue. Makar has not been healthy throughout the whole year. And I think it's a bit of McKinnon putting a little bit of the pressure on himself to try and to finish, and it's not necessarily the supporting cast supporting. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here from Colorado. They get to right the ship, actually, fortunately enough, against Ottawa.
Oh, God.
So in their favor in that one in terms of a matchup, but then again, that one could get ugly. Colorado Avalanche, any other thoughts on Devon Taves' is it Devon or Devon?
I think it's Devon Taves.
Devon Taves' comments in the media after their loss to Chicago.
No, not really. I don't think he should be the one doing that, though. I think there's other guys who can.
But they don't have a captain. Landeskog obviously is hurt. Who's gonna? Yes, you probably want that.
It's McKinnon's team.
It is McKinnon's team, but he's never been known guy to, yes, probably Nate Dogg is in the locker room behind closed doors is trying to fire this team up, but I think, Taves is taking it as.
But we're all in agreement. Colorado is not a Stanley Cup favorite without all three of Rantanen, Lehkonen, and Taves.
Rantanen, Taves. Oh, without them.
Yes. They need all three of those guys.
Yes.
Those are absolutely their key players, right? After McKinnon and Makar, those might be their 3 most important players.
Right.
Other than Georgiev, who's been awesome.
Mm-hmm. One thing I will say about Devon Taves, we talked about it a lot this year, and he's getting a ton of national attention as maybe being this dude, who is just kind of hidden under Makar, which he is. They've been bad without Makar, just bad. So it's clear Devin Tays cannot step into that role. And it's not that he was supposed to be McCarr, but he can't be a number one. Like, he's just pretty comfortable saying he's not that.
It's the Batman Robin, eh?
Yeah, but he's clearly a Robin.
Well,
there was this discussion that he might be also a top 10 defenseman that was floating around in the offseason. It's not that.
They don't put out the Robin signal.
No. So McCarr needs to be healthy for this team to function.
Yeah.
And the reality is they're so top loaded they can't miss any of these players when they're already missing Landeskog, like indefinitely. So, yeah.
Colorado's officially on watch. I'm going to be monitoring them.
For a team that's still, yes, they have 2 games in hand on Dallas.
They're going to be a playoff team no matter what.
Yep. No, it's a question of how far can they go, and things need to clean up in Denver, in Colorado for the Avalanche, and hopeful that they will. And I think it's still a team that you never want to face in the playoffs. There's no question about that. The Colorado Avalanche struggling in the month of December. Moving on to our weekly and always refreshing loose change, where we cover what has happened, our recap in the National for the last week. Lots of fun happenings around the league. Kyle Dubas made his return to Toronto. Maybe a little bit to talk about that. I know Rusty's got a little bone to pick with his Bruins. The Red Wings are struggling. What do we got? Who wants to lead us off? I know you put your stuff into chronological order, so it might be a little bit easier for you to shoot from the hip this week. Alex, I know you got some stuff. I know you were sick, so there's a few days you missed, but excited for our always weekly loose change. Who wants to fire it up?
It's a little out of topic order, but just starting, right? We recorded last Wednesday, so Thursday night, watched some games. 2 teams we admitted that we overlooked this year that are sneaking into playoff positioning is Washington and Philadelphia. So, Washington played at Philly Thursday night. My first takeaway, physical. Those 2 teams play physical. And that's becoming a pretty rare trait, especially in regular season hockey these days. First shift of the game, Edmonton blasts Hathaway. Totally clean hit. But it was just got me juggling. Hathaway kind of has a knack for getting bundled, for a lot
this year.
for a pretty gritty guy that definitely dishes it out. He's certainly been taking his fair share. That was a major moment there in the first shift that definitely set the tone, and the rest of the game reflected it. The Caps D zone, they pack it in, and they really allow a lot of kind of perimeter possession stuff. But they're playing a really kind of conservative D zone, and with the goaltending that they're getting from the duo there of Kemper and CFL Charlie fucking Lindgren is pretty outstanding. It doesn't look great, but it keeps the damn puck out of the net. Philly's first goal was a fluky bounce. Like I said, Lindgren was just
Bobby
awesome.
Brink.
And then that line that we've talked about a little bit now, Michael, Protas, and Mantha. Sealer, the Philly defenseman, he gets kind of stuck in his own D zone. There's a battle in the corner. He thinks the puck's going behind the net, so he takes 2 steps behind the net. All of a sudden, his D partner loses the puck and goes to McMichael right in front. He tucks that in. My other big takeaway, and I saw that TJ Oshie was put on injured reserve with a lower body. He is having a really tough go. This is the first time he's been out of the lineup this year for a stretch. He's played the majority of their games. He's got something like 2 goals and 2 assists, and he just looked terrible. He took a pair of brutal penalties. Excuse me. He wasn't moving well. He was fighting the puck, and for a guy that we know is such a legend in the shootout and has such tremendous skill, and his entire career has been about doing the little things and playing hard hockey. It was really upsetting to kind of see where he's at, but maybe that was some injury stuff that's been lingering. We hope that Oshie can kind of get it back on the rails and continue his excellent career. It would be pretty scary if this is the beginning of the end for Oshie. I'm not saying it is, but it certainly looked that way the way he was playing.
Oh, and you bring that up, and I know we've talked about Slovechkin, but now you're talking about Oshie. You're talking about the
Sloshie.
Actually, it's eye opening, and yet this team is still producing. And the big news I think out of Washington out of the last 24 hours is it sounds like Ethan Bear, who's still not medically cleared to play yet, but will be signing with the Washington Capitals. So that's a little pickup and a little boost for the Caps as they continue on. They would end up losing this game, I believe, in a shootout.
They lost in a shootout. CFL was throwing poke checks in the shootout like a crazy person. They ended up losing. But TJ Oshie, get this. TJ Oshie in his NHL career in NHL shootouts, only NHL shootouts, not including TJ Sochi.
It's an insane number.
TJ Oshie, 47% in
Really?
102 shootout attempts. Do you realize how elite that is?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's 102 attempts.
47% in 102 attempts. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
But again, he looked fine in the shootout, but everywhere else it was troubling. So that was a big takeaway from that game. Moving on, caught some of Carolina and Detroit that night, just a little bit. You know, Patrick Kane. It's just watching him play. You ever hear the term, fighting the puck, right? Sometimes you're fighting the puck, and trust me, I've lived it my entire career trying to play hockey. Patrick Kane is like the complete opposite of that. It's just he's just such butter every time the puck comes to him, and he's so patient. He finds lanes and he finds space, and defenders are kind of afraid to go pressure him because they don't want to look silly. And he finds like this little like nestled sort of like a force field of just like patience, time, and it is just I saw that, and I just got to watch a few of Kane's shifts, and I was just thinking like that must be so nice for the young players on the wings to be able to kind of see and witness and kind of learn from and also benefit from, in real game situations. That kind of impact on the game when the puck is on his stick. That was just a major takeaway of mine when I really caught about a period of that. They went on to lose to the Canes 2-1. But that was my takeaway in watching just for a little bit. Because it's been a while since I watched a Patrick Kane game.
I know, but you need to see like one or two shifts, and the game is completely different when he's on the. People don't pressure him. Be able to just circle back with the puck.
It's no one wants to touch Patrick Kane. It's
nobody will go next to him.
Yeah,
the Wings power play had been hurting a little bit because they started pressuring the half walls.
Yep.
Kane stands there flat-footed with the puck, and they don't go to him. It's crazy. The other thing that's I've noticed, a lot of players skate like back post or into shooting areas that they haven't been doing when Kane has the puck because they expect to pass that Kane can make the pass. So there's been a lot of plays that I haven't seen because they're getting to places that are hard passes, but when they know Kane has the puck, they're like pretty confident that if they skate hard to the back post, a puck's going to find them. And it's pretty noticeable. You'll see guys that just come flying in that wouldn't do that without Kane out there.
No denying it. But I think you got to look at where, yes, actually, positive news. Detroit fans, Dylan Larkin back in the lineup, last night, 2 nights ago? Last night. Love to see that in the sense of health and having the superstars and stars in the league healthy. And glad to see that they avoided a serious injury for Dylan Larkin. JT Compher's back, so you're starting to see this Red Wings team get healthier, but it's been a little bit of a struggle fest for this Wings team. And, Ross, I'm going to give you your Bruins moment, but, it hasn't been the boost that you would have expected from Patrick Kane to lift this team over that hump, which they seemingly got out of the gate so hot. And now it's kind of like, all right, well, we're leveling out is what we're seeing the Red Wings as of lately. So I'm curious what you've seen. 3-game losing streak, coming off of their last 7. I think they're 1-6. So it's been a rough stretch for the Red Wings.
Yeah, I mean, so it has been a rough stretch, and part of that's because of how poorly they've played. But also, I mean, they played one game with 8 forwards, that Ottawa game when Larkin went down. And then they followed it up with 5 games without Larkin or Compher.
Yep.
That's tough.
Perron's still on the shelf.
So you're missing 3 of your top 6 forwards, including your top 2 centers. So there's been a lot of talk about, like, Kane's been bad on this team. If you watch, he hasn't been. And where the Wings are not good enough to stomach losing Compher and Larkin. They just don't have the depth.
Yep.
They have nobody else to play center. We're playing most games with 11 forwards. Kane was playing 20 minutes a night. They said they had a scheduled off day for him. They didn't even let him take it. They had nobody to play. Everyone was injured. So they're not playing well, but I think this is a rough patch combined with an injury, bad luck. What's difficult is they've lost 2 goalies.
That's what
so Reimer is the number 1 goalie right now.
Husso the other night.
Husso's on
tough
IR.
One looks like it's a lower body. It looked like it might be a hip or a
it's something.
groin.
It's some lower body.
Didn't look great,
but he's on IR. And then Alex Lyon has an injury too, that they say is like
he's week to week.
I know, and they're saying
the 18th.
They're confusing about the injuries. They say day to day and week to week at the same time. It doesn't make any sense.
Klim's
week to week as well. He got lit up. I don't know what happened to upper body.
Oh, yeah.
But from that Radko
big
hit, he's injured.
Radko's bar down.
That
in
train wreck of a collision.
Yeah,
Jesus.
but I'm not like Klim in terms of like his impact on this team winning games is not nearly as much as these other guys. The goaltending is going to be a problem. James Reimer as your number one does not help win any games.
Positive. DeBrincat had 2 goals in his last games, so you're starting to see him kind of he slowed down for a bit, and when you got DeBrincat scoring, this team is on fire, and that's what they're hoping to unlock with Kane and DeBrincat. It was interesting that they started off the Ducks game with Kane and DeBrincat separated. They came together late in the game through a coaching change, but wasn't enough to overcome the Ducks, which I'm sure are on some of our watch lists. But let's keep rolling.
All right, rolling on. I caught the Florida Panthers at Vancouver Canucks, Roberto Luongo night.
It's a weird one.
You can really spare me with all the Roberto Luongo ball washing. Whatever.
Still think you got to retire that jersey.
Whatever. But no, this game was on my radar because we've obviously talked a lot of Vancouver. We've watched a lot of Vancouver, and the games that they've looked vulnerable were the one I had circled was the Vegas game when they got their asses kicked by that forecheck. And in comes Florida, who's playing great hockey and is probably the most dangerous forechecking team in the league.
Yeah.
And so that was a game I was really interested in checking out because I want to see how Vancouver responded. Now, going back to last postseason, if you recall, we sort of dubbed the term bouncing puck hockey. Bouncing puck hockey was Florida Panthers hockey last postseason. And I think it still is. That's the way they want to play, and that's the way that they're going to play. In this game, Vancouver won the bouncing puck hockey with Florida. They scored a couple goals. Building was absolutely going. It was obviously a big night for them, and they ran away with the game 4-0. I thought the Panthers pretty much played well. They just lost a lot of those bouncing puck scenarios, and I think the score didn't show, the effort there. But, Vancouver came away with 4, and I was impressed with the bouncing puck hockey from them, especially Joshua.
Had 2 in this one,
who's been great. And we caught that Blackhawks Canucks game.
Do you want to go into that a little bit? Or do you want to talk?
Well, yeah.
Because I have some thoughts on that.
Sure. It's more of the Vancouver stuff, which is it's that Joshua, Garland, and Bluger line.
Yes. They started the game. They actually started, yep.
Connor Garland was the best player on the ice that entire Blackhawks game.
I agree with that. He had a good jump.
And that line, Vancouver was absolutely asleep in the first period of that matinee on Sunday.
Oof. And thankfully, with some penalties, they were able to climb back with an Elias Pettersson power play goal. But no, I mean I think the Hawks had outshot them 15-1 within the first 10 minutes of the game.
And yet it's 1-1 after 1.
Correct. No, and that was. And then they go into the locker room. Rick gets the boys going, and then they have a phenomenal second period where they score 4
and just completely dominated the second period.
Correct. What do you think of the Pettersson or the Reese Johnson hit on Pettersson where Zadorov ended up fighting? Because I thought it was a good hit. I understand that's your superstar, but I thought it was a waste of time. Zadorov ended up getting an instigator, 10-minute misconduct, and a 5-minute major for fighting. Hawks would end up tying the game. Coming within 1. And kind of starting their momentum of trying to come back. It didn't end up happening, but I was pissed off to see. I didn't love that Zadorov ended up. I didn't think Reese Johnson had to respond to that fight, and it was. And I thought the league responded well with what Zadorov ended up getting, which was 17 minutes of penalties. But no, I didn't love that. I'm just curious what your thought was on that.
Yeah, I'm with you a little bit. I think it's part of Zadorov being on a new team, right? Zadorov's trying to make an impression.
Right, that's fair.
And it was kind of felt like maybe Zadorov was waiting for that moment, and he was a little too eager for it. But all told, right, it's the NHL. It's a fight. I don't know why he had to get thrown out of the game. I don't think there was anything super, super crazy or outrageous. He got thrown the 17 in the game. And that's all well and fine, and it's not the biggest deal. Obviously, Vancouver went on to hang on and prove to be the much better team. I just think it's Zadorov trying to make an impression. Little too eager.
Fair. Nick Foligno looked good in this one. Continues.
He has been really good for them.
He's unbelievable.
I'm curious if they're going to consider trading him or hanging on to him.
If they hang on to him, I think he's your next Blackhawks captain.
Oh, wow. Maybe.
Not for long, obviously, but
yeah,
I think it's a good turning point.
One of the all-time locker room guys.
Yep.
Right? Son of an NHLer, obviously brother to Marcus.
Before we move on, I know we won't spend too much time. This is Vancouver started, and and ended up winning this one 4-3. But this is also a Hawks team that is so hurt and depleted. It's basically an AHL team with Bedard and Few. Mrazek, another one who continues to look great.
He was awesome.
He had potentially the save of the year with the paddle save.
Oh my goodness!
To deny,
Arm, did you see the paddle save?
It's insane. I'm telling you right now. I think that there's a target on the Blackhawks. It's Peter Mrazek, but Vancouver ended up winning this one, like I said. But surprising that the Hawks were able to hang into this one versus a tough Vancouver team. Continue on.
I'm scrolling along. Army, jump in if you've got one.
Go ahead.
All right. Caught some of Tampa Bay at Edmonton. Edmonton, our favorites, and a
little bit of a slide back.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, Edmonton is stuttering a little bit, but they've already unfucked themselves. They're okay. They can handle a little bit of a cold streak. But anyway, Nikita Kucherov. He's obviously at the top of the league in points and charging quickly towards his second Hart Trophy. He had a play in this game. I didn't watch the whole game. I saw kind of bits and pieces. I was bouncing around. He had a play in this game where the game started to get a little bit helter-skelter. I want to say at the time there were 7 minutes left, and it was 3-3 at the time. And Kucherov back checks and stick lifts Draisaitl, preventing what would have been for sure a rebound Barrie goal. And he comes back. He back checks all the way, works his tail off, gets the stick in there, disrupts the Draisaitl scoring chance, then comes all the way down the ice, beats two guys, and buries the goal to go up 4-3 with 7 minutes left. And I was just like, whoa. Like, that is Hart Trophy MVP stuff. Tampa scored a couple more late in the third that just completely iced it. That was very bad goaltending by Edmonton. And this is the other one. And I forget when I jotted down this stat. Edmonton had 53 shots on net, and Tampa had 18 blocks.
Jeez.
With like a good chunk of time left in the third. So you advanced stat nerds, that is 71 shot attempts? That's fucking insane. And the fact that they come out of that game and lose 7-4 with a little bit of a crazy scoring in the final few minutes.
930 save percentage.
But 53 shots and 18 like that just absolutely stood out to me, which continues to be the story for Edmonton. You got to think, shooting percentages are going to right themselves and everything else. And obviously that's Vasilevsky who was doing his thing.
He's coming back. He's coming back, and he's looking good. Stuart Skinner actually went into the media and took the big blame on this.
Yeah,
one.
You think?
No, I'm aware. I know it was 22 shots, 7 goals.
7 on 22?
Not great. No, there's no question.
Pretty courageous.
But
pretty courageous.
It sounds like I know we don't want to spend it. I get my information from everywhere, but it sounds like Campbell had a really rough week in the A and also got pulled. So it's the Pickard Skinner show to
Skinner's
continue.
Been playing well too.
Yeah. It's true. We moving along. Keep the train rolling.
Keep her rolling.
All right. Boston, New York Islanders sat down for this one. Boston on the Isle. The Islanders are a sneaky good team.
Yeah.
This is a little credit to my buddy Jack Mack for this. Just quick little tidbit. They're a good team that's a true goal scorer away from being very dangerous. And I can't help but look at their roster and think of Oliver Wahlstrom. And this freaking kid, I've talked about it on the pod before, but this freaking kid, we used to watch Bruins games up in our dorm in Hartford, Connecticut on Nesson, and they would do this shootout challenge of like 8 and 9-year-olds back in 2011, 12, 13. Yeah. They would do that. They would air that on Nesson during intermissions. And there was this one fucking kid from New Hampshire or from Maine that would just do these crazy lacrosse goals at age like 9 or 10. That ended up being Oliver Wahlstrom. And, he goes to BC, first round pick, U.S. development program, all of that. He just hasn't figured it out in the national. They also drafted the Bellows kid, right? Brian Bellows' son. I forget his name. Again, I forget his name because he hasn't figured it out. So they've kind of swung and missed on those goal scorers, basically guys that can get you cheap goals, and they are badly in need of cheap goals. But that was one big takeaway before I get into anything else. You guys have anything on that? Since we
didn't cover it last week, I'll give you the quick note of the Robert Bortuzzo trade if you want to say anything about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hilarious. Bortuzzo goes to the Islanders because it's like the Islanders get more islandy.
Yep.
He's such an Islander defenseman. Dobson's shown a huge step that we talked about, but they've also got Pelech, Pulak, Mayfield, and now they add Bortuzzo to that mix. It's just like Jesus, guys. Like, are you going to add more pre-lockout defensemen or what?
Fair.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't hurt.
And I like Bortuzzo. It's just I feel like there's so many other teams that needed Bortuzzo so much more badly.
Oh, maybe they need to throw Matt Martin in the lineup and get our all Termite line back together.
Yeah.
This Hudson Fashing has taken his role.
I've liked what I've seen from Fashing. He skates well. I think he's a college product. He plays really hard, and he's got good foot speed. And I did have another note. I forget if it was this game or another one. I think it was another one, but I'm just going to cut right to it. Clutterbuck killing a penalty, and his stick shatters. And so he's just totally up Schitt's Creek without a paddle at like the top of the box. And somebody fires like a seam pass right in his kitchen. Fucking kick saves it. Angles his skate. Kick saves it out of the zone. Gets to the bench. Just absolute. That's Cal Clutterbuck in a nutshell, boys.
And Bo Horvat's been hot.
Yes.
He's been really hot.
And that can help with this goal scoring issue. But Horvat has more responsibilities than just scoring goals, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's taking big face-offs. He's playing center ice 200 feet. They need that kind of, they need that, I don't want to say Phil Kessel. I don't want to say Kyle Connor. But
these guys are hard to come by. That's the issue.
Yeah.
Not many teams have them.
Big time.
So, but they do look good. Noah Dobson's been great. He's been fun to watch, too.
Do you give Ottawa a call? And I know Drew at this point in his career probably doesn't give you the scoring that you'd want, but maybe you give Drew a call.
Claude Giroux's not going anywhere in Ottawa. That's where he grew up.
I get it.
He's
But
he's
you
going
don't
to
know
retire a senator.
I get
He's
it.
got a big no trade clause. He's not on the block. That night, Bruins were playing without McAvoy, without Zaga. So I'm like, all right, that means they're pretty much a below average NHL team. They'll probably get 2 points. They did. They won it in a shootout, 5-4. It's just the team played pretty well. Shattenkirk is a real freaking problem. Morgan Geekie sucked that night, but has actually been on a good run of playing well lately, which has been obviously very important with Patra going down and being out of the lineup, and with the injury to Zaga, right, where Geekie was kind of fitting in. And he's a little bit of a stumbling, fumbling klutz. I call him the third Richie brother. I think I'm gonna start calling him Geechie. Because my other nickname for him, I don't know if is pod friendly. But the Bruins are just a really kind of clumsy team in their own zone that game. And one thing, I'm not going to go on a full replay tirade here, but for fuck's sake, Brad Marchand ties the game to make it 4-4. They go to instant replay to review the goal. And I swear to God, I set my timer. It was a 4+ minute stoppage. And they come back from the goal review that the ruling on the ice stands, and there's a penalty on the play for tripping. Where is the statute of limitations? Like, we are completely out of control here.
Fuming.
It was. I mean, that is a complete perversion of what replay has to offer sports. It's just ridiculous. That was fucking outrageous. And then when it's 4-4. They call it then Pasternak gets called for a tripping call when the guy blew an edge and he didn't even touch him. He didn't even touch his skate. And so I'm not saying replay the Pasta thing. I'm just saying, like, errors happen. There's human error involved. That's why we love sports. It's a human event. And this replaying is just totally off its rocker. Final point from that Bruins Islanders game, in the immortal words of Andy Brickley, quiet night for Jake DeBrusk. Indeed, Brick. Indeed. This guy is an absolute fucking passenger. And I'm going to skip ahead to last night's Bruins game, breaking chronology here, because Jake DeBrusk, I've already said what I say on him, but now that there's no Bergeron, there's no Krejci, he was always kind of complaining that he didn't get the opportunities to skate with a center. Now they don't have any centers. Mm-hmm. And Pasternak's proven he can carry a line, and I also said and dug in my heels on Pasternak. I'm officially done bitching about the shortcomings of Pasternak's game. He's just so fucking elite. Like, there's no complaining to be done.
How many superstars like that hit and get physical and get grindy? And it's just,
yeah.
I agree with you. It's impressive stuff. And yes, this is off of a week where he had a questionable hit. But
yeah, do you guys want to talk about the hit? Or is that redundant?
It's up to you.
Who do you got? You got Lindgren, right?
Yep. Lindgren has had a tough
Lindgren.
few weeks.
So the thing about the Lindgren hit, it's twofold. One, Okay, Pastrnak hit him as hard as he could. Pastrnak also hit his back shoulder. He didn't put the shoulder into the numbers.
Do you think he got 50% of the body?
Yeah. Less.
And that's where the Jamal Mayers, if you don't get 50%.
I don't think that relates to the board's play, like how that play was, because if he got all of the body, it would have been more egregious.
Worse. Correct.
So he hit him. He put all of his weight into Lindgren's shoulder. Lindgren's got to protect himself there.
That absolutely fair. I think there's no question about it. I think the amount of time though that Lindgren's numbers are facing Pasta, that's where I think that where you saw the.
But what Pastrnak did was make a really hard play on the puck side of the shoulder to separate the man from the puck and continue playing. Like, Lindgren's got to be aware of that. He just does. And he got tossed out of that game.
Pasta would get a 10-minute misconduct, 5-minute major, and the remainder of the game in the locker room. That would be the only discipline he would face.
And, that just was what – I mean, he hit him really hard, and it was –
face first. It was a little ugly.
It was basically from behind. But
Lindgren left the ice bloody.
Lindgren tries to avoid this hit, though.
Yeah.
He stops.
He stops
And he ducks.
It's been a rough week for Ryan Lindgren.
I know, but he didn't want to play that puck and eat it.
No.
And it goes back to what we said last week. If you're going to play a long time in this league, you need to protect yourself.
Yep.
And same goes for Lindgren, who he dishes it just as much as he takes it, but fuck has he been taking it lately.
You got that right.
Back to that Minnesota-Boston game. There's this guy playing for Boston right now with the injuries because Forbert's out and McAvoy. McAvoy's back, but this guy Wotherspoon is playing on D for them. He's just an AHLer. Usually when like an AHL guy comes into the lineup, you look at him and you kind of gauge his game and you're like, all right, well, he's obviously in the AHL, not the NHL, but he's good at this. Right?
Yeah.
Wotherspoon's just over. Like he sucks at everything. Like there's really nothing he's good at. And he's just like I get that he's kind of eating minutes here in the middle, in the kind of dog days of the season right now. And again, he's doing his job, and I don't want to totally bash the guy. It's just like
I hate to compare this situation to Toronto's, where they've got like 4 guys that are AHL defensemen. I would say you take your pickings, and you got to just survive.
It's fair. That's fair. You got to survive in advance. That's true. Jacob Lauko.
Great fight. Who was his fight against?
Oh my goodness!
It was a good fight because there's also guys that were like 5'10" versus 6 feet. So it was like
It was Dewar. It was Dewar.
Yeah. It was a good size, good fight.
The Scotch whiskey Dewar. Lauko flying around like a madman that game. Bruins were a little bit sleepy off the jump, and Lauko just completely got the entire building into it. Turned into a really exciting hockey game. Really good entertainment value. I think the Bruins were sloppy, but it was a good game. But Lauko was just complete standout, flying around. He skates really well. Wears number 94 for Boston. He's that kind of fourth line grinder that is and he's Czech, but he plays like a Saskatoon boy, and I really enjoy him. He's also a Lord of the Rings enthusiast and is a pretty funny follow on Twitter. Also, another thing about his fight, he just came back from taking a puck to the face. So he was wearing a cage for a while. This is like his second or third game without a cage, and he's throwing down, pumping up the crowd, and just absolutely injecting energy. And from there, I mean, both teams were into it. This was Minnesota off of a back-to-back, and they were playing pretty competitive. And then in the third period, they come back and go from down 2-1. Bruins have a 2-1 lead going into the third period. Gets Minnesota at home. Minnesota's off a back-to-back. And the Bruins give up 2 goals to Minnesota in the third period. The Bruins are 29th in the league in protecting third period leads. And so you guys have been on me for saying, I want more adversity. I'm tired of the wins. This is getting too easy. And you know what? I'm standing by it because this is the same problem that they had at the end of last year, and now they're going to be able to kind of address this, and it's not going to sneak up on them in the playoffs because it's already up on them now. So they need to kind of find a way around that. I think the issue is they're leaning on their top guys so much because there's no depth that at the end of the game they kind of wither down, and that's why you see some very sad, very, very sad clearing plays from guys like Saga, guys like Cryrou. They're like, you want and need out there, but they're playing so many minutes, and there's not those other reserves throughout the game that when it comes down to nut cutting time, it's just a dollar short. What is it? A minute late and a dollar short.
19, 5, and 6, 6 point difference between them and the Maple Leafs. with 1 game in hand on the Maple Leafs. Or, sorry, 1 game up on the Maple Leafs at 30 versus 29. No, I get it. I hear you. I think it's a little more adversity that this team didn't face last year, and then maybe it helps them down the road, and that's all you can ask for.
Because the goaltending has been like the ultimate crutch.
Oh.
But the end of this Minnesota game, and we'll move on from it. I'm getting close to the end of my Bruins tirade. Final sequence of this game. Jake DeBrusk, 3-on-3 overtime. He's good in the overtime because it's not real hockey and you don't have to dig pucks out of corners or take hits. Jake DeBrusk flying down the left wing, fires a shot wide off the glass. He takes a big loop to the glass.
Turn. One of those turns that ends you on the bench for a while.
As the puck breaks right out for a 2-on-1, one-timer to Kaprizov, game over. And for a guy that I've said it a million times, but his career, he's so fucking entitled the way that he plays. His actions, and it's not like his teammates don't like him, but the fan base fucking hates him because he plays such an entitled game. It's like, I need a center to play with so that I can score. I need this and that and this and that. And then he doesn't get it, and he just goes into a little bit of a shell. And he's having a terrible season. And he's not adapting and doing the dirty things. And I've made the Hagel comp a million times, and it's like I think he's just as much of a skilled player as Hagel, minus some serious hockey IQ issues. But he doesn't do any of the little things Hagel does that makes him so valuable. And all right, I'm done with that. That was my the end of my little thing. Fair.
I mean, I agree with you on DeBrusk. I think it's funny how much you hate him, but
oh god,
I mean, I see it when he plays.
It's like he goes out there. He's like, how am I gonna piss off Rusty tonight? Oh man, and like that was just like the big gaping like issue. But like the entire game, he's just a fucking passenger. And there are an awful lot of passengers wearing black and gold right now, and the fucking goalies are just driving the ship. And I still think like they need to get a look at this third goalie, Bussy. They need to get a look at him in the NHL to see if they can move Ullmark. Like that's their only path to very serious contention, despite the record. I know. Does that sound crazy?
No, because there's a reason I didn't pick this team to make the playoffs. I mean, like I think the roster has holes. The goalie and defense core can save a lot of things.
Well, Matt Grzelcyk's having a really tough year.
I know, but it's still a very solid defensive core. You still have Pasternak.
I didn't even mention my red alert notes. Hampus Lindholm is... I feel like I called my shot last year going into the playoffs, that Lindholm's not a playoff player. I feel like I called my shot. Turns out he's playing with a broken foot, but...
But?
The way he plays doesn't bode well for postseason hockey. And I see this shit night in and night out, and it looks good and it works sometimes the regular season. But it was just bashing me over the head in this Minnesota game, where he's always like he's got really soft hands and a big body, and he's a really good strong skater, even if he's not super fast. But he's always being so patient that when the game ramps up, he doesn't ramp up with it. And he's not good enough to hold off the pace of the game, if that makes sense. So, he played fine. He's playing fine. He's a really important part of the team, and that's what makes me really nervous.
Well, one thing that's interesting is I remember when he was in Anaheim, which was pretty recently, but people really liked Hampus Lindholm. Mm-hmm. And, like, the idea of him was great. Since he's come to Boston.
He was a Norris contender last year, wasn't he?
He had a huge year
last year. I know. Last year he had a massive year. But I feel like since he's come to Boston, people have changed their opinion on him. Like I think a lot of people thought, including myself, that he might be a number one when he was in Anaheim. I think it's because people didn't get to watch his whole games.
And that's nothing against Anaheim and Ducks fandom.
No, it's West Coast. It has nothing to do with Anaheim.
Also
it's West
going
Coast.
From Anaheim, a hockey market, okay, to Boston, a hockey market. So I get it.
Yeah, but I also watch, like, Bruins games are on when I'm awake,
Yes.
Ducks games, like I can stay up for them, but like I don't choose too often.
Yep.
I probably do too often, but
I know. But I think a lot of the media revolves around that as well, and nobody's really been like, "Wow, Hampus Lindholm is who we thought he was," And he had a great year last year. You got praise for that, but I still think his general consensus has gone down. Like his value's gone down a lot since coming to Boston, which is odd coming off such a big year last year.
I think that your perception of Lindholm is a little too influenced by me, because if you talk to Bruins media. Lindholm's God.
But I don't hear anyone else calling his name. I just don't.
So this year the offensive number's been down, but last year he got Norris votes and was a real leader in the clubhouse for a bit. And there was so much to hate on that postseason choke that he was down the list. But I just that was my note. Jack saw my note with the red alerts around Lynn.
The goals
traumatic, and they blew the game and they got 1 point on home ice to a team coming off of back-to-backs that they're better than. No Zuccarello.
Minnesota's got a little coach boost still happening though, and they're a good team.
But Minnesota showed the juice in the third period you don't expect to see out of a back-to-back.
Yeah.
And Boston continued this issue, and then Marchand had a great game tire with about 3-4 minutes left. That forced the OT. That
hey, come out with the
some
point.
cuts in there. Yeah. Moving on.
Rewind just a little bit because
Sure.
I know we're past it. Kyle Dubas' return to Toronto.
Oh, God.
The Matthew Nyes, Gordie Howe hat trick. I think Toronto fans, and I think given it all, I don't know how much Maple Leaf hockey you've watched this year. I know that's not on your desired list.
No, I watched a lot of Leafs.
But we haven't covered a lot of Leaf hockey.
You don't think we have?
No, I don't think we have.
I mean, nothing's changed since we covered them the first time. That's kind of the issue.
No, that's fair. But
they are exactly the same.
yes, but it's impressive the fact that they're winning. They beat the hell out of the Pens 7-0 in this one, and it was an onslaught from the beginning. John Tavares hit 1,000 points. No, I personally I don't think we've given Toronto enough talk, but
and Matthews on a 70-goal pace right now.
Hart Trophy.
Yeah. I mean, he's in the hunt,
and
he's gonna have 25 at Christmas.
It's pretty serious.
Those are some numbers.
Yeah, and he's missed some games too. But yeah, it's just the league.
It's been impressive. They're as much as it is. I think they're still probably ranked towards the bottom in terms of regulation wins, but the team is pulling out victories, and they're going to have a serious problem on their hands with Marner and Nylander come soon.
Yeah.
I still think my only path to my cup pick is a mid-season coaching change for the Leafs.
They're pretty happy with Keefe right now.
Check back next week. Tune in next week, Jack.
Continue on. Sorry.
Tune in next week. No, it's all good. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, I watched a lot of hockey this week. There's too much to really get
Can we
through.
talk a little Flyers hockey?
Talk Flyers hockey.
Last night, big win over
New Jersey.
Owen Tippett. I know he had the game winner in this one, and I think this is a guy that had a little criticism and a little bit of a talk of if this guy could be a legit NHL star. I think you're seeing him start to grow into his own. It's this Philadelphia team. I think I had him on the outside of the playoffs. I think one of the two of you may have had him in there. They totally screwed our whole thing.
Nobody. We all had him last or second on the
Yeah, and it's unbelievable. I think this team is second now in the Metro.
Well, they've played a lot of games, but
Yes.
they're in the playoff mix.
Hey, even if this team, we looked at it. All three of us had him on the outside. There's no denying it. And I overlooked him. I didn't want to talk about him that one episode that we did cover the Flyers, but I think it's been an impressive stuff. Carter Hart looks phenomenal. I love
Penalty kill's sick.
Penalty kill's great.
86%.
Torts
is a PK.
It's a vibe in Philadelphia.
Horrible power play.
Two things on the Flyers. You led with Owen Tippett. I'm going to call that out for what it is. That's the Ginger Union speaking right there. That's what it is. I've watched Owen Tippett, and where was he before Philadelphia?
Philadelphia.
Exclusively Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think so.
Florida.
Took a little.
Florida. That's
Was it?
right.
Oh,
That's right.
yeah.
That's right. He got out of Florida when Florida got good. Huh. Interesting. I thought of him. It's not just because he wears number 74. I think his game's pretty similar to Jake DeBrusk's. And I think that playing for Torts has brought him out of that shell a little bit in a good way, where Torts is getting a lot out of him right now. My advice to Flyers fans about Owen Tippett is don't take the cheese. I think he's playing at his ceiling right now, which is good news for them. And this is a segue to the other thing about the Flyers. Heard Keith Jones on Kipper and Bourne this week. And one thing Keith Jones was very clear about is that the plan in Philadelphia is not adjusting to the success on the ice.
Correct. They're still wide open for business.
The plan is in place. And so I am banging on the table. If you run Philadelphia, that's Jonesy, that's Briere. Sell high on Tippett.
I hear
Sell
you.
high on Tippett. The Bruins didn't sell high on DeBrusque, and now they're sucking it right in the
There's
keister.
a little biased opinion in there on the DeBrusque there.
Sell
I think
high on
you look
Tippett.
at it and you look at the Flyers. The big talk has been coming into the season. Travis Sanheim was probably on the outs. Nick Seeler is a talked about guy that could potentially be looked at, and then Sean Walker.
But those are depth guys.
Can I give some Tippett talk before we go into trade candidates?
Just the tip.
I didn't know this. Well, last year he had 50 points for a Flyers team, 27 goals too. So I think that's a pretty solid season.
Jake DeBrusque career high.
He's a 99. And he's played 6 years in the NHL.
Yeah.
1 year was only 10 games, but he came right away into the league, which I think can be. He was the 10th overall pick, but still coming first year and playing in the league it's a pretty tough thing to do, and has played a lot of games since then. I don't know. I'm not sure he's like. I think he could be a 50-point a game guy. Like, I don't see why that's out
I
of
love
the
what I
ordinary.
saw from him.
Another difference between him and DeBrusque is it looks like he actually has an off-season weightlifting program,
Yeah, like
whereas DeBrusque looks the same way he did on draft day.
Oh, maybe there's a little more. I don't know. Yes, you could talk about the Torts effect.
I just can't believe Jake DeBrusque's dad is Louis DeBrusque. That's the biggest shocker. I'm sorry. All right, I'm not going to say DeBrusque again this pod.
We'll hold you to it. No, even what they're getting out of Sean Couturier, it's been fun watching this Flyers team, and there's a little bit more built up news around this Flyers team. Yes, they've played a lot of games in the Metro, but we got to start taking them serious.
Yes, they've played a lot of games. Yes, they're overperforming. Yes, they're in the playoffs right now. No, they're not going to be buyers at the deadline.
I'm not a huge play a lot of games guy, though. I mean, they've played one more than the Rangers.
Okay.
Equal amount as the Islanders, one less than Carolina.
Okay, I think that's right size since the last time they were. Well, they were out of whack when we did our Thanksgiving check-in. And I think they've closed that gap.
Washington still has not played a lot of games, which is
crazy.
Yeah.
Washington, Ottawa.
Fucking Washington. They look like shit when you watch them, but they pack
Washington
it in and
and
they're
Ottawa.
winning. I mean,
And LA are the three on the bottom of most games played.
just on Philly, Konechny,
sick.
big time.
Stepping finally into that.
Only shoots glove side too.
And one guy I've been really high on. I think I had a tweet that I pinned last year that didn't go anywhere because I didn't look up his contract. He signed for another couple of years. Is
Lawton.
Scott Lawton?
Yeah.
That is good.
I think Scott Lawton. This entire podcast has been built on the importance of third lines in the playoffs. I think Scott Lawton is such a perfect Blake Coleman, Yanni Gord, Barclay Goodrow. Like, he is such a perfect fit for any team looking for that depth. He's tied up for another couple of years. I think they really like him in Philly, but Scott Lawton, I just want to get my Scott Lawton love out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Final closing thoughts on loose change. What else do we got?
Let's see. Dallas at St. Louis. This was my Saturday pick, which again,
The Jordan Cryrou show.
I won on.
We'll get there.
With
Don't
some
worry.
juice, unlike you. Cryrou, eight shots through 2 periods and a goal and assist. He was awesome.
Yeah.
Matt Duchene looking good, surprisingly, for Dallas. That's
Sneaky.
It's been a really good fit.
Is he on the League of Men too?
Just about.
It's under a mil,
1.5,
I know that.
under two. This is just a little one. Just fuck, is Nick Leddy a smooth skater? He's not the best player. He's not flat, but Jesus Christ, can that guy skate? He's going to play forever. He's going to play forever if he wants to.
He's been around since 2010, I believe.
Yeah. That's 13 years, but he's got another 5 in him, the way that he moves his feet.
Easily.
And
he stepped into the NHL pretty much immediately.
He looks like a figure skater in a good way.
Yep.
Like, it's impressive just watching him carve the ice.
Yeah.
In the third period, the Blues just got run out of their barn, and they just hung on for dear life. And Dallas made the push that they're good enough to do it.
that's where-
Binnington kept him in it.
No, and I get that, and that's where I'm tough on this Blues team, is where I feel like they're going to be riding, especially coming towards a playoff push, is they're going to be riding a lot in the third period on Binnington, on their defensive depth, and that's
They don't have great.
and I agree with you, and that's where I get so scared about where the Blues end up and where their playoff hopes can be, and that's it's that much more helpful that the West has been as open as it is, but. It concerns me about, I think this is a Blues team. You look at them, I think they're a one and done if they make the playoffs.
Getting ahead of ourselves there. just one last note on the St. Louis game. 90 seconds left. Robert Thomas drop pass for Cryrou, makes a perfect pass over to Buchnevich, rings the post with 90 seconds left to go to OT.
Ding!
And I had a little action on it, obviously, for the parlay, so I was going crazy. But ultimately, they pulled that out, and that was huge. Should I keep trucking along here?
Keep it going.
All right. I had watched some Florida at Edmonton. Just watched a little bit of that because the game got not competitive pretty quickly. One quick note. And Matthew Tkachuk was in the media kind of talking about his offensive, slow production so far this year. Basically, his point in the media was, you know what? I don't care about those numbers. We're winning games. We're playing the right way. We're building something here. And it was basically Paul Maurice's words coming out of Matthew Tkachuk's
What you
mouth.
would have probably wanted to hear out of maybe Devontae's. I mean, I know probably wouldn't have wanted to hear anything out of Devontae's, but that's where I look at Matthew Tkachuk and you
it's
say
different because the teams are playing different. So it's
yes, no, I hear you. I'm just telling you that I think that's the difference of maybe the leaders that
polar
you're
opposite,
getting out of.
right?
Yep.
It's a polar opposite.
Yep, and maybe even looking at Brady. I think the jump and the maturity that Matthew has been able to have, and yes, Brady's only 23 still, so there's plenty of room for there. But
yes, he is. Last point, and I want Army here for this. Matthew Tkachuk, through 29 games this year compared to last year, what would you guess his shooting percentage is this year compared to last year through 29 games? 108 points last year, and I just bullshitted the 108, but over 100.
So I kind of have an idea of what it is. Sif, do you want to guess first?
last year was probably high teens is what I'm going to say. I'm going to say he's probably around 7% right now.
So you're saying seven to what? 7 to 17?
I'm going to say I'll say a 10% decrease.
I'm going 14 last year and like 4 this year.
So 10. Are we spot on?
Arby's correct.
I had a feeling I knew. That's
4
why I
and
didn't want to
14.
go first.
4 and 14.
Shooting percentage king on this podcast
He
for a
absolutely
reason.
is.
Yahoo Sports has it in their app.
All right.
The only guy I know that uses Yahoo.
No,
I
he had
love
the
it.
I mean,
answers
they
to the
have
test.
shooting percentage, so it's pretty sick.
He had
And
the
face-offs,
answers to the
too.
test. That was good. There was a play. You talked about the Devils-Philly game, but there was a play where the Devils turned it over, and Poling went to Farabee, who went back to Poling. It was this give and go that ended in a one-timer that was just absolutely sick. It was beautiful, and I just wanted to call that out.
Did you see Frank the Tank's tirade after the game last night?
Yeah.
Everyone is so out in New Jersey on Timo Meyer. It's not even funny.
Well, Army started it. Army was ahead of the curve on that, and I just want to give credit to Frank the Tank Fleming.
Barstool, if anyone doesn't know.
That's got to be so emotionally draining. Like how every single game feels like it's the Super Bowl, Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, or Game 7 of the World Series. Every single game, night in and night out, he is ready to.
He declared him dead last night.
He's ready to riot in a good way or a bad way after every single game for all of his teams, including the Dolphins. It's just like.
Mets. Have you seen him on the? I mean,
Oh,
162.
I've seen it.
It's unbelievable.
I've seen it. It's just honestly, especially for a guy of his kind of stature and measurables, the stamina, the emotional stamina to do that every night for all those teams. He's watching.
Impressive.
He's
Very
watching one of
impressive.
his teams or multiple teams every 365 days a year, and he's constantly chewing on his little binky and ripping his shirt in half and freaking out. It's just, I'm not even mad. I'm impressed.
I agree. Final notes. I saw you had it on there, and I hate to read over your shoulder, but Kings Sharks. I saw a bit of that. Oh my god!
Honestly,
was that scary?
Nothing to see here on King Sharks.
Nothing. I mean, it was a
what we thought it
NHL
would
team
be.
basically playing. It felt like a college team.
But so I thought that was kind of a tricky pick. I bet Kings puck line, which was pretty
minus 1.5 at.
No, it was closer to minus 105, something like that.
No, minus 1.5 on the puck line at minus 105.
Puck line means they win by 2 goals or more.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, you could take it at an
by
alternate.
1.5. It's it's a good bet, but yeah, the Sharks have been playing pretty competitive lately.
Correct. Started in Detroit actually, or started before Detroit.
But in this game, the Kings just absolutely poured it.
I
I'm loving my Kings pick. It's just a little scary. They might be peaking early. Army.
Quickly on the Sharks, they started 0-10?
Something like that, and they've passed. I think they've passed the Hawks.
0-11?
14 maybe.
So that means in their last 21 games, they're 9-9-3.
They're 4-5-1 in their last 10.
But they're 9-20. I mean, they started 0-11.
They might have been something like 3-14.
They're tied with the Hawks.
Yeah, but they've been playing well, and I've watched them a couple times, like in passing, and they skate hard.
Celebrini tank is on.
Two guys on the Sharks. Deadline value.
Ferraro.
No, Granlund.
Yeah, Granlund's good.
Just signed that.
And a guy who hasn't played this year because
traded.
he's been hurt is I was on him last year, Barabanov.
Barabanov, yeah.
You're seeing Duclair's already being a healthy scratch over in St. Louis.
Clay's not good. I'm out on him. The Eklund kid, though, he looks good.
You know what?
He's a young prospect. I like his game.
They're going to build around him.
You know who might want to buy cheap, buy low on Duclair? New York Islanders.
That could be. That could be.
I think a lot of teams could. It's going to cost nothing.
That would be their cheapest way at I think their cheapest way at a goal scorer. I agree with you. Little Ross, the GM, the boss.
I think it's a good
I know
move.
Lou listens, so.
My only thing against it is I feel like some teams, when they trade for somebody, have like a hesitancy to scratch them. And it's like, if you're going to trade for Duclair and think 50% outcome is that we just scratch him the rest of the year, great. If you're going to force him in the lineup, maybe not.
Yeah.
Did you guys talk about Columbus?
We did not. We did not.
How could we forget the
Really?
Columbus Blue Jackets?
9-4.
9-4 last night, but Kirill Marchenko had which we love.
Nasty.
Yeah, I mean, sick goals. Kirill Marchenko, apparently Columbus is open to selling anyone at this point. Like, Fantilli's obviously not on that list, but Kirill Marchenko I think would be a tough one to pry, but he would be a fun player on a different team. Yeah, I mean, he's a big scoring winger that, like, has some flair to his game, has some playmaking. He'd be fun. And then Johnny Gaudreau had a sick assist.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw that.
No, you're going to have to send it to me.
Oh, well, essentially what he does is he's standing, like, on essentially a face-off, the left face-off dot in the zone, attacking. Fantilli's behind the net, and he kind of just looks at him and waits for Fantilli to, like, skate backwards, bounce pass from behind the net to Fantilli, who just has a whole open net. And you see him just kind of pause and, like, look at Fantilli, and Fantilli just keeps moving.
So you pretty much pass the puck right through the trapezoid, like in one end, out the other?
Yeah.
Oh.
And it was just like Fantilli was waiting right there. He couldn't mess it up, you know.
You love when the boards oblige there. Right?
But it was like one of those plays, like, we hate on Gaudreau a lot because he deserves it, but, like, when you see that, you're just like, not many guys have that in their game, you know? Like,
Totally.
So it was a sick play.
There was also an epic Johnny Gaudreau meme this week.
Yes, I saw that.
Sabres are dead.
Sabres are dead.
Sabres are just not good. Like, there was no reason for life, apparently.
Yeah, Donnie Granado is going to be fired at the end of the year, I think.
But they're a different dead than the Senators. Like,
They're dead. They're dead.
They're passive dead. The Senators
still have
the Senators are
7
like
points on
struggling
them.
in quicksand, and the harder they work, the deeper they sink.
Yeah.
And Buffalo is like jumping for life rafts.
They're not even. It's not even as annoying because it's like I don't see where it comes from. With the Senators, I do. You know, I can see how they could be a playoff team.
Well, they have games in hand, so it helps. But
Outside
Buffalo
of the roster is what I'm talking
ugly.
about, though. Like, they could be good.
Well, the core is there, you know, and that's what I mean. We
still
thought
think-
the
I
same
still
thing
think-
about Buffalo.
I still think Buffalo's core, I like a lot of that. Like, I love Cousins. I love we like Krebs. Not love, but like Krebs. Love
Yep.
Cousins, and obviously the high end scoring with Tage. And they've been missing Tuck.
Yeah,
Tuck
he's
is their
back
heart and
now,
soul,
but they
right?
have been missing him. Skinner still looks good.
And Darlene is sick, and I think Owen Power is going to figure it out. He's looked
It's
like
year
early
two.
Hedman.
It's
He's
year
looked like
two.
early
It's
Hedman.
year 2.
Again, I still have the
He's
issue.
19 or 20 years old. There's a waiting period on there.
I hear you guys. I don't. There's the key element missing. He has no mean streak.
I go back to Hedman.
Yeah. No,
I
that's
know,
fair.
and
He was
you.
not
I
the
don't
meanest
remember
guy.
young Hedman as well, but, like, did he not, like, cross check somebody once in his life before this? Before he got good?
Honestly, like, he wasn't mean at all.
I don't think he was.
And now
he
he's
was
not.
very
He's not
physical in
mean
Michigan.
every game, but like he knows when to turn it on. Obviously, he's got a con.
I know, but, like, Owen Power looks like he releases flies out the door. Like, he doesn't own a fly swatter. He owns a little net.
Oh, tough criticism from Arm.
I mean,
he catches moths and opens the door and lets them out.
Yeah, I haven't seen him, like, do a cross check. I'm like, you're 6'6" defenseman, bro.
I know.
Clear bodies out. But
I hear you.
I want him to be good. He's got
Final-
all the skill.
Final
I think
loose
he'll
change
get it.
thoughts, boys.
I don't have anything that's not. I don't have anything too important not to skip.
Yeah.
I've got a bunch of Rangers Bruins notes.
The Predators kind of look good. That's all I'm going to say. They're confusing to me. They're confusing.
Okay.
It's a weird team to me. I could see them sneaking in the playoffs.
I'll spare our listeners a rant about the Bruins Rangers Saturday night game, which had all the ingredients to be a great hockey game, and just neither team showed up, and neither did the crowd. It was sleepy and sad. And
This one was in Boston or in New York?
Yeah, in Boston. And it's also crazy. You have a Tuesday night game against Minnesota off a back-to-back.
And that was a rowdy barn.
Turns into a barn burner, and it's a
Yeah.
lot of fun. Versus Saturday night with the Rangers, it was a sleep fest. So I don't know. Weird.
Yep.
It's the schedule, though. It's the National. It's how it goes. Moving on.
Absolutely. Moving on. Arm deferred his termite of the week till next week, and Ross will step up and deliver if he's ready. I know he's got a big list. So Ross, termite of the week. Moving on to the woodshed. Actually, by the way, Miles last night took an interference penalty, stepped onto the bench, ended up, I don't know if it was Bednar or one of the assistants who had to end up telling him, and I was listening to it on the radio, so I didn't see the video reaction, but apparently he was pretty puzzled to hear that he got a nice little interference penalty, which apparently was pretty blatant. But again, I don't like I said, I was listening to it in the car, so I didn't see the video of it. But Miles, always making Miles
It
moves.
was not his fault. Okay.
Never Miles' fault.
Somebody got in his way.
Yeah, that's Miles' ice.
Yeah. They should have known where he was going.
Termite of the week, Jacob Lauko. Jacob Lauko is the nominee.
Okay.
Eats a puck off the face, then throws down in a fight like the next day after getting the cage off. Third-round pick of the Boston Bruins 2018. Czech-born grinder. He's been, he's played, he's put in his dues in Providence. Never a big goal scorer, but he's a guy, again, doesn't produce on the box score. But
Just a bottom six beauty.
They talk about him on the broadcast. He's that termite style. 21 games played, 0 goals, 3 assists. Dude, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't put this in my notes. This same Minnesota game where he comes flying out, starts the fight, goes crazy, was body checking everybody. He was the electric factory that got that whole game going. In the middle of this intense play, he fucking went for a Michigan. And he almost pulled it off. It hit Fleury's knob. It hit Fleury's knob as Fleury went post to post. And if not for the knob, I thought he just mashed it on the crossbar. If not for the knob, he would have put that in, and he would have been on every highlight reel.
That would have been pretty funny. Second goal of the year.
First goal of the year.
First goal, 30 games in.
First goal of the year. Absolutely. And, I'm not the biggest Michigan guy, and, I don't like the hot dogging and this and that. But for Lauko to pull, it was just – he was electric. And I've liked him for a bit. He's been struggling to kind of get into the lineup on these deeper Bruins teams, and now that they don't have the depth, he's definitely fighting and earning his ice time, which maybe his teammate that wears a number 20 points lower can get some cues from. All right, end of termite of the week, Jacob Lauko. He's the nominee.
I like it a lot. Termite of the week, Alex is on deck, and then I will go after the new year.
Always fighting for Rohan, Jacob Lauko.
Moving on to Saturday picks, I blew it this week. I'll own it. My Oilers.
Did you ever blow it?
My Oilers. They took a little bit of a shit, and it was not great. So I will own it. But what that means for me is I am picking last. Alex and Ross are tied at 6-3. Alex, excuse me. It is your pick.
Okay, so first off, when looking at this slate, this is not my pick, but I would love to pick the under in the Hurricanes-Islanders game, whatever it is. But I'm not picking that because that's an over-under. But that's going to be a 1-0. Watch it not be. Don't actually bet that. I'm going to go here with...
Oh, would have been a clean Mishy, too.
You found the clip.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with a team that's kind of been struggling but returning from the West Coast. Let me just confirm. Yeah, they got to have a day off. I'm going Panthers over the Golden Knights. Now, it is a matinee.
Oh, you went matinee, bro.
Maybe this is the bad call, but Panthers are returning from a tough West Coast road trip. Take on the Knights.
Dude, the first night back from the road trip, they all, empty the testis and don't have the legs.
Well, we're going with it. It's my pick.
FLA, Florida Panthers over the Golden Knights, 2 o'clock start Central, 1 Eastern. Interesting pick. Ross, you're on the dock. You're on the clock.
Don't like that, Army. Fuck you guys. I'm eyeballing 2 games here.
Dun.
Go Sens, go. Senators hosting the Penguins.
I knew that game was calling you.
NHL Network game. So you're going to get that lovely NHL spotlight where the announcers are in Secaucus, New Jersey for a game in Ottawa. That'll be fun. Hey, hockey night in Canada up north. Sens to beat the Penguins. The Penguins suck, and this is a gotta-have-it game for the Sens. I'm digging my grave, but that's the deal.
Sens over Pens.
Interesting. Not surprising, but interesting. Go what?
Go Sens, go!
I love it. Lightning beating the Capitals in Washington, 6 o'clock start. I like what the Lightning have been doing. I love what the Kucherov train has been bringing. I
was looking at this game.
I'm gonna fade the parlay. I'm gonna go both ways. And
One of the most interesting picks is picking Lightning over Capitals. Here,
I was
think.
eyeballing the game. I was gonna go Caps.
I was thinking about that too, but then I was like, that seems bad.
As long as both teams don't play on Friday night, as long as
They don't.
Vazzy's in net, I feel a little bit better about it. They are
We
Lightning
just played
are
2 games last night.
Lightning are at home versus Golden Knights. I would
Seriously,
hope that
65 shots.
if the backup gets that one and then Vazzy gets the nice rest on Friday, he'll be ready to go Saturday night versus the Caps.
I'm gonna fade this too. I'm gonna chuck
Great
it on both. I'm gonna chuck it both ways. I'm gonna fade, and obviously it'll
You're
be a
hedging?
split, and I'll
You're
lose
hedging?
both. No, I'm not hedging. I'm doubling down basically.
Yeah.
It'll have to be a sweep in either direction to cash in, and I'll probably lose both because I'm a mush.
This Lightning Caps game is one of the most interesting picks I've seen. Like, I look at the whole slate every Saturday. This one in particular, I was like, what do I even... You got a team that can't score versus a team that gives up all the goals and scores all the goals.
Hey.
Like, you have opposites attracting, and the Lightning should be better, but it's in Washington.
And that's where I think the Lightning will get a little bit of hopeful underdog money line, and maybe it makes a little juice, but we'll see. I think Sens Pens might have the most juice there, but to be determined indeed.
Fucking Sens, man.
Boys,
we got to figure it out.
Boys, phenomenal pod, phenomenal episode. Final closing thoughts before we close her out.
I got nothing.
Yeah, I got nothing either. It should be a good week here.
Excellent. Well, if you guys are appreciating the content, liking what we've been posting, feel free to hit that like and subscribe button just below this video. And go check out our beautiful faces. We're on YouTube for a reason. Come look at the boys. Come look at the studio. Come look at the December figures as we transition towards the spring throughout the season. So we'll see how the figures are looking. But we appreciate you guys tuning in to another episode of Slot Shot Podcast. Follow the boys at Slot Shot Podcast on Instagram. Follow Ross at Rusty Pedroia. Follow Armdog at Armdog_SS. Follow me at Siffyman on Twitter. We appreciate the love. We appreciate the support. We'll see you guys on the 27th for our next pod before the new year. A lot of fun happenings. World Juniors, as I said, kicks off the day before. Fun happenings. Alex, we know you'll be traveling. Ross and I will be as well, but we'll be in the States. So we'll see what happens for next episode, but we'll be there. We'll be ready, and we're excited to talk hockey.
Maybe some potential guest hosts next week.
Yeah, yeah. Ross has been teasing something. That's all I'm going to say.
We'll see.
That's all I'm going to say.
Not confirmed. Tune in next week.
Well, for everyone out there, have a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays. We appreciate the love and support, and we'll see you guys next week.